All right, so for our latest project, we're going to be taking a look at this very nice old Pioneer cassette car stereo. This is model KEH-7878. This is a viewer submitted unit. This comes from Ken. He lives in California, and he got in touch with me a while back about having a look at this one for him. And he bought this new old stock. He says the radio does work, but the cassette isn't working. So in this video, we're going to find out what's going on with this, get it opened up, have a look at it. Probably the usual suspects here. I believe this mechanism uses two belts, one for the capstans and one for the real drive. So we'll take a look at those and see what condition those are in after about 40 years. And then just have a cursory look at everything else component-wise to see how everything's held up over the years and see if we can get this one back up and going for him. He says he's going to put this in a 1970s classic car. Can't think of anything better than a vintage radio for a vintage ride. So as always, we'll come in, we'll have a look at the controls and features of the unit as well as the connections they provided in the back. As for our intro music this time, we're going to go back to 1978, checking out the self-titled masterpiece from Van Halen. And anytime we're dealing with anything coming from California, Van Halen is the first band that usually always comes to my mind. And in this record here, about 35 minutes of Eddie Van Halen writing history. So let's check out one of my favorite tracks from this called Atomic Punk, and then we'll get started on the Pioneer. All right, let's take a quick look at this one. First, we'll start over here with the original owner's manual in the box, of course, new old stock radio. Gives you all the lowdown here as far as installing the radio, how to set the clock, and so forth. I actually found this very handy when I was looking at the features before I started the video. Also included the original Pioneer warranty card. Of course, you're going to get 1 year parts and 1 year labor with this, purchased back in the day. The original knobs were included with the radio. The trim plate was not included, but his original picture he sent me did have the trim plate in it, so he obviously got the trim plate, but must have left that behind when he was shipping it out to me. This radio does have electronic controls here. It's a push on, push off radio, and then you pull on the switch to decide what function you want. It's electronic control for the volume, for the bass, for the treble, and for the balance. The fader is on the back side of the switch right here. In the top left, we have something marked BSM, which is best station memory, and then program scan, and then the local distance switch there as well. The Pioneer cassette door has this listed as high power, 25 watts by 2 or 15 by 4. Dolby noise reduction on this one. There's your display window for the tuning. And then you get your 6 presets here. These also double as other features. And I found the manual useful for the one marked RINT here. I wasn't sure what that was, but that's called radio intercept. So if you have it in fast forward or rewind, you can listen to the radio until the tape gets to the point that you want it to be at. Also music search, noise reduction, and metal tape capability. Fast forward, rewind, and then the direction of the tape on the bottom there below the metal tape switch. Over here, obviously functions for the clock and for the tuning. There is no back part of this, so there is no function there. Let's have a look at the connections we got here. And I believe he did say he did install this, and that's when it was discovered that the cassette wasn't working. So that's why we have some tape on the wires. So 4 speakers. He's got them kind of segregated out here as to the ones he was going to use versus the ones he wasn't going to use. He has those over here with the remote turn on lead. There's your preamp out for an external amplifier. And then 3 wires here, obviously power, switch 12 and constant 12. This is taped up. Inside here, I think, is a 1K resistor Pioneer uses in line with the constant 12 line. And then we have the antenna connection. So very straightforward, removable wire harness here if you want to do your wiring and then put the radio in. The original box obviously has the original styrofoam inserts and all the bags, the bag for the radio and everything else. So very cool, very nice piece of Pioneer radio history here. And I think the first thing we probably want to do, let's just go ahead and confirm what he has told me, make sure the radio works and make sure the cassette don't. And then we'll get into it a little further and see if we can find out why. So give me a moment for that and we'll come back in. All right, getting you back in here. Fast forwarding down the road about a week since the initial 2 clips were made. And in that time, I was able to speak to the customer. He did keep the trim plate, so that is not lost. And in that time, I went ahead and removed the black tape and pretty much just put a couple of layers of heat shrink tubing on the resistor they have in line with the constant 12 here. That will make sure that that is nice and secure. No chance of that getting breached. Customer says that that piece of plastic, I think it's a gray tubular piece they wrap around this resistor. He said that basically crumbled just from the age of the plastic. And that's why he had put tape there. Also took the time to clean up all the tape goo off of the wires. That way that's not contaminating my hands when I stick my hands in other things inside the radio. And got it all hooked up. I'll show you what I discovered. Pretty much par for the course as to what he said, using our official Exolite FM antenna here. Looks like every single display lamp is still great in the radio and all the functions are working just fine. Of course, when you pull out on the inside portion of this, you got your choice of bass, treble, or balance. And that's pretty much it. It all seems to work just fine, with the exception, of course, of the tape, just like he said. You can definitely hear motor turning in the radio. There ain't anything happening there. So I would imagine that we're going to find some bad belts inside this guy, if I had to guess. So we'll go ahead and pull that out for now. We know the amplifier and the radio works just fine, so we'll probably discontinue speaker use, go to preamp out. That way we don't have so many wires to contend with, but let's go ahead and get the top part of it off, see if we can see anything obvious. And then from that point, we'll start breaking it down and find out what condition those belts are in. So give me a moment for that, and we'll continue on here. All right, we'll take a quick look inside here at what a brand new old stock radio looks like. And it's one with no dirt in it, no dust. Looks really good. Can't really tell there, but I can assure you those pressure rollers are mint. They're not soft. I pushed into them a little bit. And as for the tape, you can see the capstan's turning. We don't have any real action happening, so definitely one bad belt or something broken, one of the two. The first thing I noticed about this is the fact that it does have an adjustable speed capstan motor, which means we can align the speed of the tape deck once we get it fixed. A couple areas to pay attention to is the connections coming into the volume board. These connections on the outsides here are always notorious for developing cold solder joints, so we'll definitely hit those. Both sides here. Otherwise, mint condition. So to get it apart, looks very simple to me. We've got a couple of connectors we'll need to remove. This front nose piece will need to come off, and then I think there's 4 screws, 2 in the back here. So I'll go ahead and set the camera up overhead and we'll start taking this apart. All right, as we get back in here, first thing we'll want to do is take this off. It looks like it's held on by just a couple of tabs on each side, but again, having to be quite gentle with that piece of plastic. It looks like it does have a stress fracture in it at the top here on the top left. That could have been due to the installation of it. You just have to be super careful. And then let's see, we've got a couple of screws here in the front, one on the left or right, one on the left, and then in the back. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take our plugs out here. Let's see if we can get those out and get them out of our way. There we go. And let's see here, get the appropriate screwdriver. I can see a screw right back here, so we'll start back here. These screws are never in super tight from the factory. I usually put them in tighter than I found them. Like that one disappeared into the radio, so we'll have to retrieve that. The next one is right here. There we go. And then one right here. Well, that should be good enough to get it out. There we go. Of course, there's a bottom cover. We can't see what's happening there. But first, let's find the screw that I dropped down in here. There it is. Also something else. Looks like a piece of styrofoam came out of there. There's the other 2 screws. So we'll just take a quick look in here. Again, everything looks really, really nice, as you would expect for something that's never been used and never been installed. Very clean. We will take the bottom off and look at potential cold solder joint situation. Now for this, looks like there might be a screw here, and maybe one there. Let's take a look at that. But you can kind of already see in here, we got some gooed up situation and a pulley that don't have a belt on it. Not sure how well the camera can pick that up, but doesn't look too good. Let's pull this, push that off to the side for a second, and let's take these screws out and we'll take a quick look. These screws, will kind of isolate those from the rest. Okay. Now let's see here. It's captured right there, so I kind of slide it back, take it out. You can see some belt goo right there. And the capstan belt is on, but the real drive belt is the one that's turned to goo. It's not even on the pulley any longer. But boy, there's a lot of nastiness right there. That's going to have to be cleaned up. Probably have to take that pulley completely off the motor to do it. Got a nice big indentation in that, so that's pretty much the end of that one. So let's go ahead and I'm going to get a towel set up here and probably some rubber gloves for the amount of goo that's all over that to get all of that cleaned up. So give me a second for that and I'll pick back up with you and we'll start cleaning this up a little bit. In order to put this new belt on here, we'll have to take off at least, I believe it's just this one gear here, so we'll definitely want to be careful with that. So give me a second to kind of get prepped for that and we'll carry on. All right, we'll go ahead and get to work on this. I think maybe the first thing to do is, let's see about getting these guys off. I believe these are the ones that actually don't have a split in them, so you kind of got to work them off. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife here so I can get the blade up underneath it and try not to send it across the room as I'm bringing it off. There we go, right there. Let's put that over there out of the way, as well as the gear. And because of this, I'm thinking I should probably take that off too, because we're going to want to clean that up. Let's just see how much of this belt I can get to agree to come with it. I'll go ahead and get that. And once it touches anything, you have to get rid of it. It is just such a contaminant at that part, at that point. Got lucky again. Get that over into a tray. And yeah, that's going to be fun for sure. This is the reason for the rubber gloves. This stuff gets all over everything. And the last thing I want to do is touch something and contaminate it. I actually see some in the grooves of the capstans, but for now, let's set this off to the side and work on the gear, and let's work on this. To get that off, it should be easy enough. I'm just going to slip a tiny straight screwdriver underneath and gently pry. And get that off of there. And let's set those off to the side. You can see it's already starting to contaminate everything I'm touching. So I'll have to clean up my tools and everything when we're done with this. Let's go ahead and get it cleaned up from here, or as much as we can. And again, once it touches something, throw it away. This is some of the nastiest shit ever. And once you've got it wiped down, then I'm going to take some acetone and wipe it up further just to remove all remnants of it. The last thing you want is this to come into contact with the new belts you're getting ready to put in. Of course, we'll lube up the capstan motor. We'll put a little lubricant in that, since I'm using acetone around the shaft of it. But it gets all over everything. And all it takes is the smallest amount of it. And you kind of have to clean until it's all gone. That's really the best practice when it comes to this stuff, is to get rid of all traces of it. Now I'm going to use this one to clean off the tips of my gloves to kind of further keep things clean. It's just a big mess, and it's time consuming to clean it all up. But you gotta do it. You gotta clean it all up. Okay. All right, so let's, for the moment, let's set this off to the side, and we'll work on this. Let's see how much of this belt I can get out of here. Just tar, basically tar. Now on the plastic pulleys, you definitely do not want to use acetone here. I'm going to use alcohol to clean this up with. Look at all of that. Jeez, man. That is just, it's everywhere. I'm having to be careful with what I'm touching as to not get this stuff all over everything, all the containers of the chemicals and anything else it might come into contact with. Jeez. I'm actually going to get a second rag just for my gloves, so I'm not recontaminating anything. Got a second rag here. I'm gonna try to clean myself up a little bit. This is the extreme amount of contamination for these things. It is just beyond mind-boggling. I don't even really know how to explain it. It's just, unless you've experienced cleaning this nasty shit up, it is beyond anything I could explain to you. And if it gets on your skin, it's not obviously harmful, but it is definitely hard to get off. And you have to get it out of the little groove in the very deep part of the gear or the pulley. It all has to be gone, every bit of it. So you're kind of cleaning yourself up as you're cleaning these pieces up so you don't recontaminate them. Now we're going to get a Q-tip into that deep part of that. And I'm just using pure alcohol to clean these up with. Again, don't want to use the acetone on this. Then once you get the bulk of it out of there, then I like to take a toothbrush and kind of go into the grooves of it. But you want to get most of it out, or nearly all of it out, until you can only barely see like a little line of black in that grooved gear, or in that inner part of the pulley. Yeah. Put that there. And I'm just going to pour a little bit of alcohol on the toothbrush here. We're going to go into it like so. Because again, you don't want a new belt touching any of that stuff, because it'll screw it up. There we go. Got a little bouncing going on here. So I'm going to call that good on this one. I think you get the idea of the mess involved and what kind of cleanup is involved. So I'm going to go ahead and work on the others, and then I'll bring you back and we'll start talking about the belts and getting some replacement ones for this. But yeah, every piece you clean up needs to look just like that. No traces of that stuff. So I'll work on the pulley for the capstan motor and the capstans, get it all cleaned up, and I'll bring you back. All right, let me go ahead and get you back in here and get you caught up on where I'm at. This carnage over here kind of tails the tail. The gloves I used, the old belt, which had goo all over it that contaminated everything else, and all of the cotton swabs that I used to clean it all up with. That doesn't include the 10 or so that I put in the can there. But after everything is said and done, and we got nice clean pieces, can be quite difficult to get every bit of it out of there, but you got to. Let's see, there we go. Nice clean pieces, and of course I did the cap stands too, and those, of course, those are dark, so you might wonder, well, how did I know I had all of that goo out of the motor pulley and the cap stands? Well, that's another story. Basically, just got to keep running Q-tips in the creases until it comes back clean. But it is fine now. And the belt pulley over here was also contaminated, so I think we're going to be okay. I'm going to go ahead and reattach the two pieces. I've got my replacement belts here. The small belt's an SCX 3.5, and the capstan belt I'm using an SCY 15.2 if I'm not mistaken. And so we're going to go ahead and get this reassembled here and see if our tape deck works. But yeah, a lot of that to get to the point where it's nice and clean. So give me a moment. I'll bring you back after I've got everything reassembled. All right, as I get you back in here, things looking a lot better than they were an hour or so ago. Everything looking the way it's supposed to. Got our new belts on here. These are fitting snug, but not too tight. Everything moving the way it's supposed to. Obviously, both of these belts are supposed to rotate. This one for the capstan, this one for the rear drive mechanism and for the auto reversing. And the threading of this belt, very straightforward. Coming up here to the top of the connecting pulley, going over the top of the first capstan, then back to the inside of the second one, and then completing the path. You will have to, as I did in the video, you'll have to take this gear off. If this one's contaminated with old belt, then of course that one will need to come off so you can clean it. These little washers they use to hold the gears on, these do not have a split down the center, so you'll have to kind of work them off and be careful not to shoot them across the room, because you will definitely never find it. So I think we're okay here. I'm going to go ahead and put the lid back on this, or the bottom cover back on this. I'm going to take a quick look on the inside of this radio just to make sure there isn't anything that's obvious, any leaking capacitors. I'd find that hard to believe, and probably spot check a few of them just to make sure there's no issues. But otherwise, just based on the condition of the radio and what we found here in the tape deck section, I don't anticipate any other trouble. So I'll bring you back in once I have it back in, and we can play a tape in it. All right, probably worth noting, the previous clip, I believe I said something to the effect of, I'm gonna take a quick look at the capacitors just for any obvious leakage. I'd find that hard to believe. Well, as it turns out, it wasn't that hard to believe. There were two obvious Elna caps. These are 47 mic at 25 volt. Don't know if the camera can pick it up here. It might be just a little too tiny. Clearly leaking, no question about it. I pulled the main board assembly out of the tray it sits in. Basically just this. Wanted to look at the bottom of the board just to check for obvious solder issues. I always like to go around and just redo the grounds. And in this section right here next to the amp chip, very dark. You could tell that there was an issue with a couple of capacitors. Now, this particular type of Elna cap, there's only 4 in this entire radio. There's this major one right here, 47 mic at 25 volt, I believe it is, or 16 volt. There's a 220 mic at 25 volt. And then there was the 2 that were leaking, which I replaced with Panasonic capacitors. But yeah, I pulled the 220 out. It was totally fine. This one I didn't pull out because it would be obvious from the bottom of the board if it was leaking. But every other cap in the entire radio is not that series of capacitors, just those 4. So definitely always a good idea to take a look. Now remember, the radio worked just fine when I turned it on. Even with the leaking capacitors in it, it was working. But probably wouldn't have worked to its fullest potential with those 2 being bad and leaking. And of course, that's going to cause erosion of the traces. They were already starting to get really, really bad. And so I went ahead and just kind of tacked them up a little bit. The traces that had the leakage actually go to adjoining pieces, you know, adjoining components right next to it. So I just bent the leads over once I put the new caps in and completed that out. So yeah, I think we're totally fine here. Finished up the soldering on both sides of this and both of the control pieces, and then all the grounds from the entire radio. So I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and get it put back together, and we'll see if we have a winner. All right, let's go ahead and get you back in here. Got everything back together, and the tape is functioning as expected. Checking out our official bench test tape, Odyssey record by Yngwie. Including side 2. And music search also works just fine. I mean, I don't know, the speed doesn't sound too far off to me. If it's off, I'm sure it's not right on the money, but let's go ahead, we'll throw an alignment tape in it, and we'll take a look at that real quick, and we'll get ready to wrap this one up. Got the alignment tape in the unit right now, and this is without me touching it. 3001, 3002, somewhere in there. On the reverse side, it's 3005, 3006. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna touch that. Now, if this would not have had an adjustable capstan motor, this thing would have been running at 3042 or some crazy number like that that would be noticeable. But because it does, then you put a belt in it and it works just perfect. No problem whatsoever. So I think we're going to leave that alone, and we're going to go ahead and do a final play test on this one and wrap it up. All right, let's go ahead and pick up one last time, having a look at this incredible new old stock Pioneer radio, KEH-7878. And I think the takeaway from this video should be, it doesn't matter if it's brand new, sealed in the box. After 40 years old, you can pretty much expect you're going to have to do something to it, especially with something that has rubber belts in it. Pretty much the same scenario as finding a brand new car with 6 miles on it in a barn that's 40 years old. You're not ready to take that car out on the road for a joyride until the proper maintenance has been done. So this one, pretty and cool radio though, an incredible find, and I'm sure he'll be glad to have this back in working condition so he can put it in whatever car he's going to put it in. Now I wasn't able, since he has the original trim plate, I was able to find us a substitute one so we can dress it out with the knobs and kind of get the full effect here for our final play test on it. And for that, we're going to use this. I bought this on vacation a few years ago. It was sealed in the plastic copy of the Slip of the Tongue album by Whitesnake. And having this Pioneer radio and this copy of this album reminds me of some pretty good times from my youth listening to this very album. And so we're going to play my favorite song from this, called Judgment Day. So let's go ahead and get that started up. We'll turn it up a little bit here. And as always, I want to thank you guys very much. I appreciate you checking out the video this time, as well as all the videos on the channel. And we'll catch you on the next one.